I've been a residential loan officer here in the Phoenix area for about since 2008. And I've grown my business from, just starting out to over, well, close to 1,000 units a year, right? So our business closes, for the last 3 months, over 100 deals. So I promise you, if you implement the systems that I'm going to teach you today, you can take wherever you are at, and I promise in 3 years, you will 10x your results. So I'm gonna send you guys each a PDF of what I'm talking about after the class, but I wanna explain to you a couple things that are going to be essential when it comes to, growing your business and ultimately just increasing your results. So the very first thing when it comes to like maximizing your efforts is figuring out the business that you have today and where you're actually taking it. So this is something that is taught in every single business class, but figuring out a business vision that is a business vision for your biggest and highest hopes. So a 10-year goal, right? So in 10 years, where do you want to see that business? I would try to make it as detailed and visual as possible. And then once you have that 10-year vision, take it back 3 years. Where would you have to be in 3 years in order to execute that 10-year plan? And then where would you have to be year 1 to execute the 3-year plan, right? So it all starts with a good, concrete business vision. Now, when you do the assessment of where you're at today, what I want for you guys to figure out is this the type of business that will get you to that dream business in 10 years, okay? A lot of times what I find is that people have an idea of what their business is, like what they're growing, what they're cultivating, and then once they start putting together all of the numbers, the metrics, the data from their closings, they realize that they have a completely different business, and it may be a business that doesn't support the 10-year goal. Right? And so then we have to reevaluate, right? Do we change the 10-year goal or do we change the business we have today, right? So first things first, you got to collect where you're at. So you're going to collect all of your closings, right? So all of the details on all of your closings. Were they buys? Were they listings, right? What was the sales price? What was the commission that you earned? How did you get the client, right? So we'll categorize it in what type of referral it was. Was there an activity that generated that lead? And was there a referral partner associated with that lead? Okay. So 100% of inbound referrals are a result of, or inbound calls are a result of a referral or are a result of marketing efforts. Okay. If you did not make an outbound call, if you did not meet them at an open house, if you did not knock on their door, shake their hand, kiss their baby, right? It is not prospecting, okay? And you can't take credit for that type of referral, but you can associate it with marketing. So in terms of business metrics, we're gonna quantify prospecting efforts, we're gonna quantify referral partners, and we're gonna also quantify marketing efforts. Right? Because it's a 3-prong approach in how we grow a business, okay? So again, so you're gonna collect all of that information, right? And you can get as detailed as possible, like find out if they're repeat clients, if they're first-time home buyers, move-up buyers, investors. And what we're gonna be looking for in the data is trends, right? So where are we seeing trends in the business? So for me, right, I look at my business, right, and I'll take probably a quarter at a time. And what I have found in my own business metrics is that I deal a lot with first-time home buyers. Okay, first-time home buyers seems to be where we have the most momentum. So my systems are all geared to first-time home buyers. My marketing is all geared to first-time home buyers, right? My referral partners all geared towards first-time home buyers, right? So I do other types of businesses like refinances. I also help with second homes and investment properties. I don't focus any of my attention on those things because my primary source of business is first-time home buyers. And I gathered that information from my business metrics spreadsheet. Okay. Then what I noticed in the numbers is that you typically will always have a secondary source of business. Okay, so this is going to be somewhere between 30% of all of the closed deals that you have. What you want to make sure of is in your prospecting and marketing efforts that the secondary source of business also reaps a reward from all of the efforts being placed to the first one, right? So for me, my secondary source of business is refinance. Okay, so if I constantly provide value to my first time home buyers, right, and make sure that it's ongoing even past their close of escrow, chances are I will get their refinance just based on the same prospecting and marketing efforts that I did to get their purchase. Does that all make sense? Okay, so right now there are some of you who will do this worksheet and do this assignment, and you'll find out that you have you'll have first two primaries, right? So you have two sources that equal almost 50% of your business. That, just so you know, happens when you haven't put a focus on your business, where there isn't just like a plan. Eventually, over time, as the business gets more successful, one will take over. The other thing that makes this exercise a little bit more challenging is that sometimes people find supplemental sources of business, so where they've closed one or two deals off of an activity or a marketing piece that they really enjoyed, okay? Anything that does not result in over 50% of your closings or 30% of your closings is what we call supplemental business. And until you have actual data behind it, it's just luck, okay? So just so you know, you can't count on it, it's hard to replicate. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, right, so you can see what I'm talking about, and I will give you guys this quarterly vision business tracker, right, because this is actually the tool that I fill out for my personal business that allows me to go ahead and figure out where I'm going to pivot, where I'm having success, where I'm going to put more money and more attention to. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right. So you guys should be seeing this quarterly vision tracker. Can you give me a thumbs up if you are seeing it? Yeah? Okay, cool. So on here, we're gonna review the lagging measures. Again, like I said, we're gonna go backwards in time and figure out where all of our deals are coming from, and we also wanna look at profitability. So this is one thing that drives me nuts about real estate metrics, is that lots of people talk about GCI and they talk about gross commissions and gross volume. None of that matters, right? The number that matters is actually what you take home, right? So I know lots of $100 million producers making $250,000, and $250,000 is a lot, but it's not a lot when you think of $100 million of production was done. So we always want to look at units closed, volume closed, income, business revenue, business expenses, marketing costs, staff costs, and then I'm a personal believer that you have to pay yourself first in terms of savings for the business and then giving, right? The more you give, the more you get. So we're going to compare it to year-to-date goals and then compare those numbers to past market performance, okay? This is going to be a year, guys, that we just all have to pivot and figure out ways that we're going to be successful, because there was a month and a half where not a lot of activity was being done, right? We were all in shock, right? We had a national pandemic, and then followed by riots. So there is going to be some sort of displacement here, but it can all be made up, right, in the third and fourth quarter. Okay, so long as you know how far off you are, or if you're not far off on metrics. There are some people that I've been talking to that are literally like almost double where they were last year. So we're kind of all around the spectrum here. So you're going to compare it to past market performance, and you're just going to be honest, right? Did you hit the benchmark for the goal, right? So based on the business plan that you set out, right? And if you didn't have a business plan, your goal should be to be doing 30% better than the year before. So if you didn't have one, do past market performance and then do a 30% improvement on what you should be looking for in terms of your benchmark for this year. Okay, and then simple yes or no. Okay, so if we are not hitting the benchmarks, the next questions are, let's look at the leading measures, right? Did something change in your referral sources? Okay, did something change with the amount of leads, right? Because most everything can come down to a conversion issue, right? If nothing has changed with the leads. So are you still getting the same number of leads from your primary source, the same number of leads from your secondary source, right? I definitely know that there was a 1.5-month timeline, like I said, where activity was really low, right? So there is a good chance that your output might not have met the requirement to get the leads. Okay, so again, we're going to be looking at all of those, and then you're going to ask yourself the following questions, right? What activities generated the most leads? Now, I have seen countless people's business trackers, and the thing that drives me crazy is that they'll get a lead off of Facebook from somebody they know from high school, and they'll count it as a sphere of influence, as if they did something to generate the lead, right? That is 100% marketing effort if you have not spoken to that person in 20 years. Okay, it is a Facebook generated lead, and you really want to pay attention to that, right? Because there's things that you are promoting, right, that generate business. Okay, some of us are very lucky to know people that constantly refer us business. Okay, if you have a person in your life that refers you business, right, you have to pay attention to that, because again, we don't want to be confused that our own efforts are generating the lead. It might just be your relationship with so-and-so, right? And then is that replicatable? Okay, so you want to pay attention to current year's business. Is it the same as the previous year? And if it is changed, what has changed? Okay, I cannot emphasize that enough. There's so many people who don't pay attention to the numbers, and they're either closing more in volume, so they're making the same amount of money, but their business is going down. Or there's a bunch of people who they're getting the same number of leads, but they're working harder and the commissions have been cut, right? And they're focusing on the wrong things, right? So they drop their referral business to chase Zillow business, right? So I just want you to pay attention to what is changing with your businesses, okay? Once you gather that information, you can really develop it, right? So anything that generates the most amount of closings, we absolutely keep, okay? And you have to think about, if you want a 30% improvement on those results, you have to improve whatever that process is by 30% or more, okay? That process has to be improved, right? And we have to know what the anticipated result is. So for me, my #1 income generators are teaching classes online and our birthday program, right? So every year I try to figure out how I'm going to improve my gifting program, and then how am I going to improve the classes I teach? How can I get more people to them, right? So it's really important, right, in terms of prospecting, that I realize how I'm going to improve upon that. Then you always want to be adding things, right? Like I said, the improvement. And then you want to stop 100% things that have low ROI, even if you really love them. So let's say you have this amazing Facebook campaign, you paid $500 to go to a class, you put a bunch of ads out, you spent a ton of time, a bunch of money. If that is not producing results after 90 days, after one whole quarter, you drop it. I don't care how much you like it. Okay? We don't stay doing things that don't have results. Okay? Same, so you do it with prospecting. So prospecting is anything outbound that you physically did, shake hands, kiss babies, call people, visit them, right? Anything you physically did, that's prospecting. Marketing is all the information, all the content that you put out, okay? So we're talking prospecting and marketing. And then we have to focus on skills and training. So you can be literally the world's worst prospector, worst salesperson, and still close deals if you have the right number of leads. 60% of the population, guys, closes deals based on the person who showed them the next step. So long as you're talking to people about what the next step is, right, you will still close deals even if you're the worst salesperson, okay? Now, it's expensive to get a lot of leads, and it's expensive to not convert them, okay? So it's always super important that we're focusing on improving the skills that help us close more deals, right? So it's script training, it's coaching, it's role playing, it's business development, it's marketing classes, whatever you need, there has to be a focus on improving the skill set every single quarter. Okay. Otherwise, like, you will get better over time just doing it repeatedly, but things change, right? Like, think about all the things that have changed in this marketplace, right? All the door knockers, if they couldn't, like, literally nobody wants you to knock on their door right now, right? Like, they're not even going to answer because they're terrified of catching COVID, right? You need to pivot, right? So, like, adapting and developing new skills for the same skill sets will help you beat the inevitable, right? It'll help you beat all the things you never knew were coming your way. Okay. So again, so there's that. And then again, we're going to compare all of those activities, all of those aha moments to the previous year's data, right? And then here's what I think right now that I would love to just kind of start a conversation on, because I think that this is where people are struggling the most. And it's, how do I convert what I'm doing today to work in a COVID era environment, right? Like, what can I be doing? How can I take my prospecting virtual? How can I make my marketing efforts more impactful, right? Because there was a short period of time where everyone was on social media and everyone was consuming so much content. Everyone just assumed that that would keep going. And now there's so much content, so much information. People are actually not getting on social media, right? Because they just don't want, it's too much noise coming at them, right? So how do we adapt an in-person sales to a social distancing style of marketing and prospecting? Okay, so the last thing on this whole PDF, right, before we go back into how we're going to adapt to COVID, is I believe that every quarter should have no more than 3 improvement projects. One related to prospecting, one related to marketing, and one related to conversion, right? So that's it, right? I think if you have too many projects going at one time, you're going to fail at all of them. And they should each be supportive of one another, right? So when I am working on prospecting scripts, right, and I'm working on sales scripts, right, I'm focusing on selling things through marketing that I'm teaching my sales team to improve in terms of scripting, right? And we're going after those types of prospecting so that everything is interrelated and can help support each other. So it's like we're working on one big project, but breaking out what the marketing piece is, what the prospecting piece is, and what the skill refining piece of it is. And then you always have to be aware that everything you try to implement will literally go against everything you're doing today, right? So when we try to make changes, I am personally a believer that the universe will challenge us, right? They'll make it really hard. It'll, you know, like all of a sudden that'll be the day that Murphy's Law hits, right? And you'll realize that you have potential challenges. But if you're committed to that 10-year vision, if you know that this is the pathway to success, you will have to anticipate what those challenges are, what resources you need, and what costs you're going to spend to make sure that these things happen. Okay, I'm going to give you a personal example. Weight loss has been a huge mission of mine this year. So I knew that first and foremost, I don't like to wake up. I don't like to work out. Like, these are not things that are come natural to me. So I hired a personal trainer to show up at my house at 5:45. Okay, right? That was the plan. I already knew that my big issue was going to be my willpower to wake up early and my desire to work out. Okay, the resources were the personal trainer, and there's obviously a cost to a personal trainer who will show up and knock on your door. Okay, this is what I'm talking about, but it's being really honest, right? Because if I'm really honest, I could work out consistently for a week with no problem because I have enough willpower for 1 week. Okay, but then when I'm sore and achy and don't really feel like it, I need that extra accountability, that extra support system that's going to help me like push it over, right? Because at nighttime, believe it or not, I am always like, okay, I'll feel better in the morning. So I never remember to cancel, right? And then he just shows up and I'm like, darn it, I'm working out. Okay. So those are things are super, super impactful. And other things that you need to do 2 hours of your week, I don't care when you do them. I spend Sunday nights or Monday early in the morning planning out improvement projects and reviewing the results from the week before. If you don't have a weekly reflection on what's happening with your production, your leads, your closings, this plan won't be worth anything. In fact, you'll get off the plan and not even notice, and then not want to come back because you don't want to face the results. So every week it takes you 2 hours to review the results and reflect on changes. Okay, so this is a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly practice. Okay. All right. So I do not know how to unmute you all at one time. Okay, so you're gonna have to press the space bar or unmute yourself, but I do really want to talk about how we're going to change our plans to COVID related plans, because I think it's super important here. And I'm not, there we go, our COVID adaptations. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing and get back on this. Okay, so I really want to open up a dialogue and really talk about what we think has been the biggest struggle adapting, like what we have done, right, on a physical, personal level from last year that has been a struggle in this environment. Chris, I'm going to pick on you because I know that you do a lot of in-person sales.
Yeah, for me, I prefer the face-to-face. I prefer the sit down and have a coffee at a desk, whatever it may be, right? And obviously that is something we can't do right now. So that my biggest adjustment was actually doing a lot more of this, or at least video messaging, so that I felt like I was still getting that face-to-face connection. I feel you pick up so much more through your expressions, through how you emphasize your words and things of that nature, so that when I was communicating with people, I was losing that just by sending a text or an email and things like that. And I wasn't keeping touch, whether it was, with a prospect that I was trying to do business with, or whether it was somebody I already had previous experience with. I was losing some of that touch by not being able to just stop in and say hi, not being able to just go to lunch or whatever it may be. So that was my adaptation, was doing more of the video as much as I possibly could to try and connect with people.
Now that obviously the state has opened up, people I still find are kind of reluctant to doing things face-to-face. Clearly we're doing a Zoom call versus a face-to-face lunch and learn. What is the plan to take this? And like, were there any ahas that you had like going into it that you're like, wow, this actually was more beneficial?
Yeah, so for me, it's time saving, right? So I think one thing that we all learned is I can go through 4 appointments in one morning, whereas those 4 appointments may have taken me a day or two, depending on somebody's schedule and when they were available, right? And so moving forward, as much as I want to do the face-to-face stuff, as much as I possibly can, there are going to be times and places where our particular situation right here, let's say this is a one-on-one or even a group setup, is going to be more appropriate, and I can save my time, their time, and get through more appointments that way, pending the type of appointment, right? So that has been kind of an aha thing moving forward. I know a lot of agents that I work with, they've set up something very similar to this via social media, doing a first-time homebuyer Zoom, where I know agents that for years have tried to do like a first-time homebuyer seminar, and they'll have an apartment complex, let them use their lobby and spend all this money on food, and they'll invite 900 tenants and have 2 people show up, right? Like it's really hard to make one of those go off successfully. I had somebody send one out last week just on social media to their friend database there, saying they were doing a first-time homebuyer Zoom. It was going to be 30 minutes, first come, first serve for anybody that wanted to get in. they had 37 registrations and they had 16 people show up. That was like wildly more successful than anything that they would have done in person. So those are some of the different, like the ways that you adapt, I think, or can adapt. Those are a couple examples of things that we can maybe do moving forward that keep people comfortable, not only right now, right? Because we don't, who knows how long it'll take to find this new normal, whatever it is. But even moving forward, I think it's just saving time, saving money, saving energy, and just being more cognizant of what you can get done in a day.
Awesome. I think those are really, really helpful and insights. And just so you guys know, Chris is my partner on the title side. He is brilliant and has a wealth of knowledge on what some of the top producers in the industry are doing. So if you want to pick his brain, you know, will you make sure that everyone has your cell? Do you mind giving that out?
Put it in the chat.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. So who has any additional questions or has a problem that they'd really like to troubleshoot right now? So I saw a couple of you unmuted your microphones, but I haven't, all right, Jeff, I'm going to pick on you.
There you go.
Well, for me, you know, I haven't really been into social media at all. And I'm newer into residential real estate. I've done commercial real estate for a long time. So social media for me has been kind of a new challenge, but I'm getting used to using it, and it's actually kind of interesting and fun. And I've been actually getting some good reaction from posts I've done. I've done a few videos, things like that. So just for me figuring out how to do that's been a challenge, even though it's not too hard. It's just seeing what works and what doesn't work to get people to engage in my posts and, you know that this is what I'm doing now and that kind of good stuff.
So one thing that I will tell you will help, and this is not in the PDF, but if you guys want to write this down. So once you gather the data for who you're actually helping and where your primary business comes from, it's also really important to figure out what does that demographic struggle with, right? So for first-time homebuyers, right, they struggle with credit, they struggle with down payment, they struggle with knowing the process, right? And so for me, when I do anything that's marketing related, social media, ads, prospecting, I'm constantly addressing those questions, right? Those problems. So I'll put up, if you look up any of my social media, I'll give credit tips, I'll give process tips, I'll give money tips. I really try to educate them on actual problems, and not so much in a how-to kind of format, but in a, this is the best way because of my expertise. Based on what I know, this is how you get this done. One of the big mistakes that I see lots of people make in social media and in marketing is that they're constantly providing information that you could easily Google or find on Zillow, right? Like you can find a property listing on Zillow, but why is that the best house? Why is that the best neighborhood? Why do you think this is such a good deal? Right? People don't know that information, and that's what's really going to set you apart from anybody else, is if you share your expertise. So I hope that helps, Jeff. I'm going to start, I just friended you, so I'm going to start watching what you're posting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Also, we talked last week a little bit about your letter of the heart. Also a really good post, you guys, right now, especially because we're trying to reconnect with people, right? Again, just reintroducing yourself. You might know these people for 20 years, but they don't know you as a realtor. They don't know why you're a realtor. They don't even know why you're qualified to sell them a house, right? So we have to explain, like, hey guys, I'm Lizy Hoeffer. In case you didn't know, I do home loans. I also raise 3 kids, in my spare time. Right? So we got to reintroduce ourselves, explain what our mission is, explain how we can help people, right? And give them a reason to care about our cause, right? So it's super important. I'd love to see that letter of the heart, by the way. And then we can figure out how to put it on social media. Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that with you.
Yeah. Good social media, though, always addresses what you can do for other people. Okay. You cannot be the hero in your own story. Okay, so everyone, imagine everybody is Luke Skywalker and you are Yoda, right? Yoda teaches people, right? Teaches Luke Skywalker how to be a Jedi, right? So that's what your social media has to do for other people, even if you're talking about yourself. Okay. Cool. Monica?
Oh, where can I find hi, how are you? The letter of the heart material.
So I have a questionnaire. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my email in here. And then if you guys want any of the things that I'm talking about, just go ahead and email for like our letter of the heart questionnaire. And then definitely I would recommend following me on social media because I teach these things all the time.
Lizy, I'm sorry, I couldn't remember your tag on YouTube. Is it just Lizy Hoeffer?
Yeah, it's just Lizy Hoeffer.
Okay.
Yeah, but thank you. I appreciate you putting that in there.
I had some really good tips in there, not just weekly, but multiple times a week. Finance, loans, just a lot of good, valuable stuff. I love the one that you did about helping your children understand money. There's just a lot of good content, not just for your clients, but just life in general. I highly suggest that.
Awesome. So one of the things that I have also done that's really helpful, right, is when you grow your plan. So my very first plan started off with this WOW process, and the WOW process was 5 great conversations a day, 2 personal notes, and then it required like a monthly newsletter. Okay, that was like my whole WOW program in terms of marketing, prospecting, and then I would include a pop by, right, for people's birthdays. Okay, now as the years have grown, right, and so now I used to make handmade note cards, right? Now I send sprinkles cupcakes as part of my WOW program. Now we do gifting for people's life events. I do a weekly newsletter on the market. In addition to now, I also support it with social media. I also do live stories, right? I have a private Facebook group again where I'm helping my clients, right? In addition to, I still do all those 5 phone calls, right? And my face-to-faces, we're teaching classes, which now I do online, right? So if you can see how it started with that skeleton, and then as I'm applying more things, I'm like, how can I grow this 60%, right? How do I keep providing value, keep touching them, like keep continuing them to want to seek out the information that I'm providing? Okay, so take a look at what you're doing today, right? You know, you can look and say, God, you know what? When I do face-to-faces, I close more deals. In fact, I was at this party where I got 6 of my clients from. I should throw more parties. Now, it's COVID, right? So you can't necessarily throw parties, but you can do maybe like in a parking lot, do like that social distancing 6 feet happy hour, or you can do a happy hour on Zoom. You know, I did I sent a whole bunch of bottles of wine to a bunch of people, and then at 5 o'clock we got on Zoom, right? So you can do like a virtual wine tasting. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. I don't think they're as effective, but I think they're still effective. Okay, but you have to realize like what you're doing, right? And then adapting it again. Okay, so let's see. So Abraham, is that Abraham Tapia? Is that you?
Yes, yes it is.
Okay, so Abraham, guys, is a newer loan officer, and he used to be a real estate agent, so he's seen both sides. He worked for Joshua Smith's team, and he literally has, like, I mean, talk about hustle. I personally coach him right now. Tell me about your transition, because you became a loan officer, right? He became an actual salesperson in this COVID environment.
Yeah, I mean, it was at first definitely very nerve-wracking, jumping into the independent loan officer position as everything was going on, as all the uncertainty was happening. I think, you know, one of the things that, you know, also kept me going or like really lit a fire underneath me was, you know, putting myself against the wall, you know, and really just going for it, you know. Yeah, with that.
Your daily routine consisted of, right? So like how many more phone calls are you doing, right? Because you were going around to people's offices before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the calls have definitely increased. You know, as a loan officer, you know, you take an application. I mean, that's, you know, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So you get, you know, 7 applications in one day. That's a whole day, you know, not to mention all the stuff that you have to do in between. And so I think it really, really helped when everything went to online with Zoom calls, especially, you know, the travel time alone itself, you know, 30 minutes to an hour for the travel time, 1 hour for the client, and then, you know, coming back another 30 minutes to an hour. And so that's, you know, three hours essentially gone out of your day in one meeting, where as opposed to now I can handle 3 clients or even more potentially with these Zoom calls. So it's definitely been really, really helpful doing the Zoom calls. It's just been tremendous.
So I'm also going to pick on you for, so I coach him, so I know some of the struggles. So one of the things that he said was, I do 7 Zoom calls, that's my whole entire day, right? And so we've really had to talk a lot about time blocking, right? Because it is very easy, I find, in this environment to get glued to your email, right? To get glued to social media, to waste time, and to make things less productive, right? So I still think that you can work on shortening that time with a client. Like if you shaved it to 45 minutes, right, and still super effective, how many more things could you get done, right? So we talked about changing his prospecting time to first thing in the morning from 8 to 11, right? So just knocking out those calls, because then the rest of his day he can focus and get lost in whatever. But so long as the prospecting continues, right? And that is a pivot, a change that we had to make in COVID, right? Because his entire days are getting sucked with just extending these client appointments that would normally be way shorter, right? Because out of time, you just couldn't make them be an hour, right? Because you were driving 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? So just challenging those beliefs, right? So he is brand new. One thing I will tell you though, is that never being a loan officer before, aside from like coming off of my team, he's going to close 8 transactions this month, right? That's huge for a brand new salesperson. So again, like focusing, paying attention to the metrics, prospecting, and, you know, being really highly tuned into the number of leads. Like he can tell you how many leads he gets. He can tell you his conversion rate. He can tell you how many appointments he's having. He is that dialed in. Okay, Monica, I saw that you unmuted yourself. Did you have another question?
No, I just never muted myself back. Oh, no.
Oh, no, you're
Thank
fine.
you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so does anyone have any ahas or any additional questions that we can go over while you have me and I can explain this form a little bit more, or answer questions or give you guys tips? Okay, so if everybody is satisfied, I'll just wrap this up with, I'm gonna go ahead and email everybody this PDF document, right? So that you can have it, you can print it out. I'll also send you the small business tracker for how you complete the homework before you actually fill this out, okay? And if you need additional questions, wanna ping me online, all of my contact information will be below. But yeah, I'm very grateful for you guys for coming in today, for, you know, sharing this information and supporting my business. If you did get a nugget of information that you think that will help you with your personal business, I am gonna ask that you think of me for your next referral. So thank you guys so much for participating today.
Thank you, Lizy.
Thanks, Lizy.
You got it, guys.